Well, thank you for joining us again for another installment of The Grace Between Us.
I am Lori.
And I am Nathan Hurst, and I believe this is episode number 7.
7.
And today we're going to tackle something, it's not that controversial, but it is something that comes up in church from time to time, Christian life around this time of year.
Yeah, being Christian and patriotic. How does that happen? How does that work?
Yeah, how are we as Christians supposed to respond to holidays like the 4th of July or Memorial Day or Flag Day or whatever, How patriotic should we be? And this is for us here in America, but, maybe it's Canada Day or maybe it's some other holiday that you celebrate in your country of national origin. So what does the Bible speak to? How do we as Christians react to that?
Personally for me, I love the 4th of July. I like to just celebrate, our country, everything that it stands for. Get out the red, white, and blue gear. Get kids decked out. Go to the parade. I'm there. I'm like, flag.
She's waving her flag. She's all excited for the fireworks, like most of us are.
Yeah.
And for my little guy, our oldest, when he was little, he loved fireworks. Then he went through a stage where he hated fireworks. I mean, we couldn't put him in front of a firework display to save our life.
He's
plugging his ears. Oh no, it was not fun. Plugging his ears and screaming and crying. And it happens as kids age out of different things or age into different things. But more than that, it's a time of celebration.
Yeah.
It's a time of camaraderie. People come together. They enjoy each other. They enjoy each other's company. They enjoy food together. So there's a lot of things that mimic what the church looks like, even in our celebrations of, nationalism, for lack of better terms.
Yeah. What does the Bible say about the government, though? I think that's something we don't talk about a lot. If you go to Romans 13, it says, "Be subject to the governing authorities, for there's no authority except from God." So when we think about that, we have to realize, God's our ultimate authority, but we also need to respect the authorities and the government around us.
Absolutely. We have a responsibility to respect the law of the land, as it were be. As long as it's not immoral, as long as it's not directly against God's will, as long as it's not directly against what God has called his people to, we have a responsibility to respect that. And I would say out of that respect, at some point comes some mutual, what do you call that? Like, a sense of patriotism where you respect things to the extent that you actually honor them.
Yeah.
If we really respect the law of the land, if we respect the governing authorities, at some point we learn to honor those appropriately.
This totally takes me back to Bible college. Brother Canfield, he would talk about Watchman Nee's book, Spiritual Authority.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, he made me feel so guilty for speeding. I cannot even tell you. I mean, I still do. But
And you have ever since I've known you. This girl's a lead foot, man. Oh my gosh. That little BMW we had when we first got married, she put a ton of miles on it. I bought it for myself. Eventually it became her car, and eventually she got a couple speeding tickets in it as well. So yeah, she has that lead foot. But yeah, we're supposed to respect the authorities, the law of the land. And you could read Romans 13 as respect every individual mandate from our government. And I think there's some truth to that. But more than that, it's really about just respecting the government that you live under.
Right.
It's about learning that there's a reason for the authority structure that's around us, and understanding why that authority structure exists. We can then learn to respect the government around us. So there's a reason to celebrate whatever national holiday is that your country may be celebrating. There's also reason to celebrate and to respectfully celebrate the country that we're a part of.
Yeah, I definitely agree.
Yeah.
We should celebrate our heritage.
Yes.
Although as Americans, we haven't had the rich length of culture as some countries. But we still have a rich heritage to celebrate, and we should.
Yeah, we should respect that. We should celebrate that. We got a little new puppy Doberman. Well, she's 8 months old now. She's 60 pounds walking around. So you might see her head pop in from here or there, and you hear her toes clicking, the pitter patter of little Doberman feet in the background. They're not little anymore. No. Anyway, but we need to learn to respect that. And again, whatever country you're hearing this from, or whatever country of origin you're from, there's a reality to respecting the government, and part of that comes in how we celebrate. And part of the reason that we celebrate the 4th of July in this country is because we are respectful for those that went before us.
Right, absolutely.
We're respectful. Really, the Bible even makes this very, very, very clear that we're to provide an inheritance. And part of being that, and Christian patriot, Christian nationalist, that might be over the top terms, and for good reason. But the fact is that even in 1 Timothy chapter 5 and verse 8, we're admonished there by Paul. Look at that. All she wants to do is play. Throwing her head on her lap. You can hear her running around, grabbing her toys. We should have put her up, but last time we did, she just cried for the whole hour we were doing this. Oh my gosh. But anyway, 1 Timothy chapter 5 or 1 Timothy chapter 5, verse 8, says that we are to provide for our relatives or for those under our care an inheritance. And that if we don't do that, even the members of our own household, if we don't do that, then we're denied the faith and we're worse off than an infidel. And you might be able to say, oh my gosh, that's just about, a life of faith, an inheritance of faith. That's really not about anything that has to do with patriotism. Well, I would argue that the Bible's really telling us in our state of being, our state of governance, whatever state we find ourselves under, that we have a responsibility to prolong that under the just authority of God as long as we can.
Yeah, we should definitely have that for our families.
Yeah, because there's a godly inheritance that comes as we learn to prolong the government that we live under, celebrate the government that we live under, and be a part of the rich histories that we live under. Because every country has a rich history, and we should learn to celebrate your particular country's history.
Right. There's a lot to celebrate.
There's a lot to celebrate.
It's people. It's your family. It's where you came from, and that's not something that should be swept under a rug.
No, and if you immigrated to another country, maybe you immigrated to the United States, my background is Hispanic, Mexican. There's a part of my Mexican heritage that we still celebrate as part of our family life, and there's some part of our German heritage that we still celebrate as part of our family life. But ultimately, we've left those two countries of origin, and now we are Americans. Right. And so now we celebrate. And I identify, much more as an American than I do Hispanic or Mexican or German. Right. I've never lived in Mexico. I've never lived in Germany. I don't really understand what that means. So I identify as an American. And for me to prolong a heritage, as it's talked about in 1 Timothy, part of that is setting up a government, hopefully under godly rule, a godly and just rule that literally gives, it gives an inheritance for my kids. Right. So my kids and my grandkids are experiencing, hopefully, a better country than what I experienced. Yeah,
and hopefully we can help to make those decisions and make it a better place
for
them. When we look back through history, it's not always been good decisions.
No.
It's not always been, it's been some good, some bad, but we learn from those and we move forward, and we still have national pride in our country.
And where we've come from. we're not claiming we're a perfect country.
No.
We're not claiming we've made all the right decisions as Americans, and we're not claiming we've made all the right decisions in the last 12 months.
No.
But we as a country, I believe we're doing what we can to move the ball forward and to actually hopefully be a beacon of light, that city on a hill that we're really called to be, not just as Christians, but hopefully as Christians living in the country that you live in.
Yeah, I think too, when you talk about a little bit of the, being patriotic and a Christian, a lot of times people kind of roll their eyes, get a little annoyed that you want to talk about certain things, because people want to get offended especially when you start speaking political,
the
issues.
Whole goofy concept of, separation of church and state. The church has no reason to be a part of the state. Come on. You're going to take your religious beliefs and totally throw them away when we talk about governance? No one does that. Anyone that says they do is a liar, because there are fundamentals to your faith life that are with you forever. Now, we need to understand how to separate things appropriately.
Right. Social media makes it easy to just post out there all the time, and you can see people, especially when it becomes political, just clashing constantly.
Yes.
Even in the church Christian community.
Yes.
And, that is heartbreaking to me, because that's not what I feel that we're supposed to be about as Christians.
No.
We can have differing views and still be brothers and sisters.
That's right.
And I have a hard time when I see people, bullying people, especially Christians, bullying Christians because they don't have the exact same viewpoint. You don't know where people come from.
That's
you
right.
don't know why they have the beliefs that they do, and for you to judge that is not Christian-like.
No, and part of the national pride, right, is part of the being a Christian patriot is allowing other people to have different points of view, even if you totally disagree with them.
That's why our country has become so great.
That's right, because we have the opportunity to flesh out these ideas, to talk about them at the risk of offending others and say, this is what I believe. And even if you don't like it, even if you don't agree with it, even if you think I'm totally on the left side of the issue or the right side of the issue, that's okay. We can still have a dialogue.
Right.
And that's what we've lost in this country. And I fear that we're losing the potential of setting up an inheritance for our kids for a great country, for a better country, if we don't come back to the center and learn how to have these conversations.
Yeah, I think that's why our country became so great, is because we could
Yes.
have those, differing viewpoints, and
Absolutely.
then not one person makes that decision here, and that's what's fantastic.
And that is what's fantastic. In fact, if you love the president or hate the president, or if you love the past president and hated the past president, the fact is one man doesn't determine the course of our nation.
No.
And I love that that's how the founders carved out how this governing body called our government should work.
Right.
That we would actually have something to celebrate, because it's not about one party. It's not about one set of rules. It's not about one person over another.
Right.
It's a fluid thing that grows and adapts and evolves. And that is something to be proud of.
It is.
Because we've come a far way.
Yeah.
We started this country under slavery.
Yeah.
Now look where we're at.
Yeah.
We have so many more opportunities for equality now than
Yeah.
we ever have.
Thank God.
Exactly. Thank God. There's a reality that I might not have existed because of the issues of mixed race marriages
Right.
in the past, and so thank God I have an opportunity to exist. And there's other issues that come around with that, but if we think about our patriotism as an opportunity to advance an inheritance for the next generation,
Yeah.
I think as Christians we can buy into that.
Yeah, it's
right?
not about being right all the time.
No, that's not really the
people
point.
get stuck on that. Christian,
Yes.
non-Christians get stuck on, I have to be right, and my viewpoint is the only viewpoint.
Oh, yes, my viewpoint is all you need to look at, and we're not really trying to set something up for the future. We're trying to win an argument in the here and now.
Right.
And sometimes there's give and take in that.
Right.
There's give and take in political discourse. How can I best affect an outcome for change that I'm seeking and not alienate the other side?
Right.
And right now, we're seeing the debates for the presidency and the 20 candidates that are put before us. And, this will go on for some time. And we live here, we pastor here in Iowa. So
Yeah.
we're one of the first states to get hit hard because we're one of the first, the primary states. And so we get hit hard. These folks come into our neighborhoods and into our local cafes, and they chat up Iowa, and they talk about the concerns of Iowans. And then we don't hear from them for 4 years.
Yeah.
It's sad but true. It happens all too often when it comes down to this cycle. But the fact is, we're still celebrating the whole mess that is our government, that is the people of America. I think
that takes us to Romans. When we talk about Romans 9:3, and it says, "My brothers, my kinsmen," these people are our people.
yeah, that's right.
And when we're fighting back and forth, these are what we're just fighting ourselves.
Well, it's okay to have family feuds.
Sure.
It's okay to have fights within the family. It's not okay for the family to cause a hardline division and constantly ask for a divorce.
Yeah. Yes.
And unfortunately, that seems to be happening in our country more often than not.
So if you take away anything for the holiday weekend, if someone says something you don't like, don't be offended. It's just their opinion.
It's
Move
just
on.
their opinion. And maybe it's a big thing to you. Maybe it's like the one issue you hold your hat on. That's awesome.
But be thankful that we all live in a great
Yes.
country.
And if you get in an argument, it's knocked down, drag out, you're screaming and yelling, man, learn how to forgive quickly, especially over political issues. Learn how to forgive quickly. Come together and understand we don't have to see eye to eye to be brothers.
Right.
In fact, as Paul said, as Lori was pointing out, my kinsman, my brother, like he was literally saying there's an affinity I have towards other folks
Yeah.
who are part of a shared experience. And that was a nationalist kind of a concept Paul was pointing to. These were people who had a shared experience. My kinsmen, my brothers, these
Yeah.
weren't the Greeks. These weren't the Romans. These were the other Jews. My kinsmen, my brothers, they're part of my people. And that's what we're celebrating when we talk about things like the 4th of July or this patriotism that can swell up in our heart. But, one of the things I learned from a friend of ours, a pastor who's planted, I believe he planted 16 churches in his lifetime. And it's one of the best lines I've ever heard. And it was in regard to doctrinal disputes in the church, but it really lands here as far as patriotism is concerned. We don't have to be twins to be brothers.
Nope.
That's the truth, man. We are very close, obviously, husband and wife, and I think we have a lot of the same ideas, but there are times we disagree.
For sure.
And there are times where you're going to disagree with the person that is the most closest to your heart. That's okay.
Yep.
It doesn't mean you have to now divorce yourself.
No.
Doesn't mean you have to split from the conversation.
It doesn't mean you have to conquer them either.
No, yeah, you might not be the one to change their mind. That's okay. You might be the one that God used as. What is that about? Are you trying to point at me
You
and
like
say,
to conquer.
well, I like to win arguments.
You do.
No doubt about that.
And sometimes I'm like, no, I'm just not going to agree with you. We're good.
We're good. It's a frustrating
He's like,
thing.
no, we're not good. I'm like, oh, yeah.
It's a frustrating thing when the other side refuses to argue, right? When they refuse the
I'll
battle.
be mute.
But the fact is, we don't have to be twins to be brothers.
Right.
We have to be brothers to be brothers.
Yes.
We have to have shared and common experiences. We have to come together under some sort of a banner and say, yeah, we're going to hold this banner high, even if we don't see every aspect of it the same.
Right.
Even if we don't see every aspect of it maybe as clearly as the other person sees the identifying marks of this banner, we're still in this fight together.
Yeah. I mean, God created us each uniquely
Yes.
for a reason. We all have different opinions, experiences that bring something great to the table.
Yes. I think at this point in our country, we are actually trying to create more and more division than we are trying to bring people together.
Yeah.
A piece of legislation was signed, I believe it was passed last week, as far as helping people at the border. That was a bipartisan support, right? Didn't get enough airplay. Didn't get enough news time. Why? Because that's not good news, right? That's not headlines. That's not something that catches your attention. A bipartisan effort went through. Everybody agreed, or at least enough people agreed to push the bill through. That doesn't grab headlines. What grabs headlines is this person's fighting with that person, and this group's fighting with that group. And this group's mad at that group. And those things grab headlines. And unfortunately, I think it's caused more division than it needs to.
Yeah, when we can come together and come to an agreement is when real change can be made, instead of fighting back and forth. We have to come to that. Otherwise, like we said before, not one side is going to have the answer.
Nope.
We need to come together and come to that conclusion together.
That's right. And I'm not saying you give up on your principles.
No.
Right? There might be something that's, just buried in your heart. It's a deep set principle that you're living your life by. And you need to hold to that, hold
Right.
fast to that.
Yep.
It doesn't mean you're going to win every argument
Right.
on that issue.
Yep.
But it might mean something that is just a deep-seated, seed-bedded issue of your heart. And that's fine. Hold to that. But understand that it's not about winning every single argument. And I know I'm speaking to the choir when I say that, speaking to myself as much as anybody. Because, man, I'm good at it. Unfortunately, I don't even shy away from the argument anymore. I like it so much.
If he wasn't a pastor, I always said he would be a politician or a lawyer.
Oh,
all
man.
of
Well,
that.
I'll tell you how bad it is. Maybe we shared the story, but where we went on vacation and I was arguing with the, what do they call those guys? The guys that try to sell you timeshares.
Oh,
We got caught in one of those pitches, and the guy's like, "Yeah, we're gonna try to sell this unseeming couple. We're gonna try to sell them this timeshare and jack up the price and everything." And my whole goal was, I wonder how low I can actually get him. Like, I had no interest in buying it, but I thought I'll waste 2 hours to argue with somebody, and I
was
did.
exhausted.
Well, she took the kids to the other room eventually and
Done.
left.
I was done.
But I got this guy down so low. It was such a fun game. And at the end of it, I'm pulling out a check and a credit card, like, I'm ready to buy right now. How low can you actually get this? And I had the manager coming out saying, "This is the lowest we've ever offered this deal. It's never going to happen again." I got up and said, "Hey, thanks, folks."
He walked away.
Thanks, folks,
I'm
for
sure
your
they
time.
hate him.
Oh, I'm sure they hated it. I'm sure I just
poor
wasted
guys.
2
They
hours.
wasted their time.
I know. I shouldn't have done that. But I do like that. And in liking that, sometimes I have to pull back and understand, okay, well, this just isn't worth the fight, or this isn't worth my time, or it isn't worth the battle right now, or maybe there'll be a better time. And
There's no better time.
well, no, I don't mean with that particular instance. I mean, there's a better time to have the conversation or argument, because maybe sometimes both people are closed off. And it doesn't instill in us this band of brothers mentality.
But if someone doesn't agree with you, please just don't cut them off. Just
Oh, my
because you
goodness.
don't agree 100% doesn't mean they're less of a person. It doesn't mean that their opinion doesn't matter.
That's right.
And it doesn't mean you have to hate them and block them on Facebook. Now, if someone's being aggressive towards you, I get that. But
Yeah.
come on.
If it's unfounded and it's unasked, if you're part of the conversation, then be part of the conversation. If your feelings get hurt, suck it up, be a big boy, be a big girl, and go back to the table and start the dialogue and have the conversation. Now, if it's unfounded, if the person's just throwing onslaught at you and you haven't asked them to be part of the conversation, that's different. You might need to turn that person off. But if you've asked someone, or if you're engaging with someone, Or if you're engaging in these generic comments on Facebook and you're just throwing it out there and hoping that someone will pick up the towel and fight with you,
Oh my
well,
gosh.
then you've asked for an argument and you need to see it through.
No,
and if
thank you.
if you get irritated, that's on you. Yeah. If you get upset, that's on you. Don't cut people off for that, though.
No.
You asked for that fight.
Yeah.
So understand what you're asking for before you ever get into a fight. You might be asking for more trouble.
You know,
than it's
people
worth.
get like this crazy courage when they're not
Oh,
face
they
to face
do.
with people putting stuff on
They
Facebook
do.
trying to look for a fight. It's
Oh
ridiculous.
my gosh. You have guys, you have girls who in a face-to-face confrontation would pee their pants at the moment there was an aggressor in front of them. But on Facebook, man, they look like they're the 500-pound gorilla, you know. They're the tough guy. And I love that tough guy mentality.
Oh.
She hears that term from me all the time. Tough
guy.
guy. Tough guy. You want to be a tough guy?
Sometimes
I'll show
he
you.
calls me a tough guy.
Well, when people are just picking fights for the sense of picking fights, all right, tough guy.
Yeah.
How far are you going to take this? Are you really going to follow this through? Because you probably won't.
No.
You'll probably give up because
Yeah.
it's not a principled thing.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's a totally different conversation that we could have there. But, you know, in all of this, we need to also respect the idea that, you know, Jesus, well, the Gospels really don't intend for us to have an affinity towards a nation over an affinity towards the gospel or the kingdom of God. In fact, we know through Scripture that 1 Peter chapter 2 and verse 11, that we're sojourners, that we're exiles. This isn't our home.
This isn't our home forever.
No, this is not our home. So should we have a sense of patriotism? Yes.
for sure.
Should we have a sense of national pride? Yes. Is it sometimes going to be our nation against the world? Yeah, at times it is. And that's okay. There's a band of brothers, a shared experience that we're trying to cultivate. However, we also have to understand that there are things that tie us together as Christians that supersede our nationality.
Yes. Yeah.
There are Christian brothers and sisters all over the world, and our affinity should be to them before it is to our nation. Because realistically, we're all just refugees. Sorry, I'm fixing the dog's collar. We're all just refugees in reality.
Yeah, on this earth.
That's right. This is not our
This
home.
is not our eternal home. You know?
No.
This is just a small portion of
Small
the time
portion.
that will be.
That's right.
You know, we're eternal beings.
That's right. And in that eternal being, this is not the place we're ultimately going to find satisfaction.
No, not at all.
So if you're trying to find help and aid and satisfaction and you're going to right all the world's and all of humanity's wrongs to the government, I'm sorry, you're going to be disappointed.
Disappointed all the way.
You are going to be extremely disappointed. Because again, while we're in this system, we're not of this system.
Right.
While we're in this world, we're not of this world. And God never expects us to be of this world. Was she bugging you, the dog? She's like
biting me.
going nuts right now.
Stop.
Oh my goodness. It's fun to have a puppy. They told us it would be great to have a puppy, you know? They're fun. There's 70 pounds or 60 pounds of just pure joy. There she is. Oh, look at that. Anyway, I think, man, this 4th of July, celebrate. Eat all the hot dogs you can. Fire up the grill.
Sparklers,
That's
fireworks.
right. Get those snakes going, right? The little smoky snake things. Whatever you need to do to celebrate.
No matter what aisle you're on, it's okay to be proud to be an American.
That's right. That's even if you don't think that this time in this country's history is the best time. Maybe if
Right.
this isn't the moment that shines like a beacon of light for you, that's cool.
That's okay.
We still have a shared history.
Right.
We still have a shared past that we
And
can all be
have
proud
a
of.
huge future ahead of us.
And that's the thing. We have a huge future ahead of us, but don't forget, this is not your home.
Nope.
This is not your home. This is not what we're called to. We're not called just to be Americans. We're called to be citizens of heaven. We're called to be citizens and kingdom-minded of heaven.
Right.
And that's really our ultimate goal as Christians, to come to a place not just where we love on each other as part of this nation, this great collective of people who are moving what I believe is the will of God forward in some extent, but more than that, that there are Christians all around the world that we identify with even before we identify with our country of origin. Even before we identify with our country of origin, we identify with them.
Right.
So let's keep a balanced perspective. We're all refugees in this thing called life anyway. We're all sojourners.
We're all children of God.
That's right. Well, yeah. We can get into that. And we can be more distinct about that later. But yes, we are children of God, those of us that have accepted Jesus. But we are so happy you're part of this podcast with us. We hope that maybe it shed a little light on how you can celebrate and where God can lead you in your patriotism over the next couple days. And hopefully it answered some questions. If it didn't, hey, hit us up in the comments below. Remember to like and share. Follow us on what? On Instagram.
socials.
The socials. At what?
Instagram, the grace between us.
Yes, at the Grace Between Us. The Instagram, the socials,
Yep.
the social media, the Twitter, the Facebook, all of those fun things.
Follow it or subscribe.
Subscribe, like it. You can also find us on Anchor, anchor.fm / The Grace Between Us for
and
the podcast.
comment.
Yes.
Please let us know your thoughts on this. Maybe you're like, no, you guys are wrong. Tell us.
Yeah, if you
You're
think
not
we're
gonna
idiots,
offend
go ahead.
us.
No, you're not going to offend us. It's going to take a whole lot to offend us. I mean, I guess if you poked particularly at the chub on my face, I guess I might be a little offended, but probably not. I'm probably not going to
working
care.
on that, okay?
We're going to get that down. We're working on it. I got to get that down and under control. I don't know. I don't really care. I don't really care. I'm married.
Thanks.
Thanks, right? It doesn't matter what I look like. You can't go anywhere.
What?
That's right.
Okay.
Anyway, we're going to
time
do a
to go.
podcast on that
Sign
later.
off.
We'll do a podcast on that some other time. Oh, man, we thank you for joining us at The Grace Between Us. We hope you enjoyed this episode. Stay tuned for other hard-hitting episodes with hard-hitting topics, and definitely comment, subscribe. Let us know what you would like to hear us talk about, or maybe there's an issue that you're not quite sold on that you really think we need to bring to light. Man, give us an idea of what that could be.